Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special bonus episode on the Killer Kaiju podcast. Today, we'll be tackling the one, the only film that started it all, for me at least, Friday the 13th, part
It ain't no
one.
Halloween, but it's there. It's there. It's right there.
It is. It's up there with the best of the best. These films, for better or for worse, defined, I feel, the slasher genre and went on to inspire tons of, for better or for worse, movies, depending on what they are, and really shaping it into the genre it is today. And I feel like for these movies, like the Godzilla films, they also have their own quirky charm and a really dedicated, serious fan base for those who like it. And I feel like that's why it's a great film to be tackling in this series.
No, all these movies are great, but 90% after, not so much.
Yeah. The first one being my favorite, and as we get started on the film, we'll dive a little bit more into why it's my favorite and all that. For those folks just tuning in case you are not usually a common listener of the Killer Kaiju podcast and you're just here for the horror films, this is a podcast / commentary. So you're more than welcome to listen to it, listen to our opinions on the film as we watch it. Or if you'd like to, if you're watching the video or if you're listening along, you can watch the film with us and we'll do a countdown and you can hop along and watch along with us. I'm pretty sure there's not a director's cut of this film to my knowledge. So whatever version you're watching, as long as it's English and from North America, it should be about the same time length that lines up when you watch it with us. So that being said, folks, we'll do a countdown. We'll dive right into this film and tell you all about why these movies mean as much as they do to us. Alrighty, so on the countdown, we will begin. And yeah.
Let's get it.
Let's do it. So 3, 2, 1, play. Start our timer here. This is your guys' first episode on this podcast as well. My name's Lucas. I've loved watching kaiju films and horror films, which is why we're covering this. And they've made up a big part of my life. And with me, sort of similar, minus the Godzilla, we've got Josh with me as well.
Hi. Sorry, I'm just excited. I'm watching.
Josh is definitely a huge horror fan, and that's why with his love for films that use a lot of practical effects like old horror films, he was the perfect person to bring along on my journey through the Godzilla series. So in that being said, we're going to tackle monster films and horror films on this podcast as well. So I feel like a lot of people that watch these movies really have seen at least one Friday the 13th film, and a lot of the times it is not this one. And I feel like that makes this movie hold a special spot in our hearts because the uninitiated see this film. By the way, folks, if this is your first time watching this film, don't listen to this podcast because we are going to be talking spoilers throughout the whole film for sure. So if you haven't seen the movie, I definitely recommend watching it first on your own so you don't have anything spoiled, and then come back and watch this commentary and enjoy talking with us about it as well. Okay. That being said, the spoiler warning has been dropped. This film doesn't actually feature the regular killer that is in most of these films going forward, and it's become the face of these movies. He is in it, but he is not the one doing the killing in this film. And I think that's part of the really cool idea behind this film that I really enjoy. And a lot of people hate it for that reason. I don't know, Josh, how do you feel about it?
Oh, I love this movie. It's iconic, especially the use of having your mother kill for you, or at least a family member because they're going crazy because of losing your son. That, of course, would make you go nuts and seek revenge.
Absolutely.
I feel like it's a lot more realistic than personally having Jason lived in the forest for 20 something years or whatever.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I like the fact too that this movie is very realistic. Like the other ones, as Jason comes back, yes, at first he's kind of a mongrel and he survived, and they kind of don't really tell you that he's superhuman or zombie in any way. He's just a child that they thought died surviving, taking them out. Milk and honey on the other side. Hallelujah. All right, there we go, guys. We butchered it for you. Woo! But yeah, that being said,
I want that.
I know. I like the fact that, like I said, they don't really see Jason as this entity that's like a killing machine, and this one he's really just shown as a boy. Same with the next two films, at least solidly. He's more of just a killer, misunderstood, doesn't really know what he's doing. And I love the fact that that's hidden and remains. I don't know. There's just something iconic about it.
So like I don't know if you're gonna bring this up, but I'm totally gonna steal it if you haven't or aren't. This was all taken place and recorded in New Jersey.
Yeah, I believe it's a real camp that's still open today. No, I believe.
Yeah, it's a Boy Scout camp and it still runs to this day.
Yeah. Do you know the name of it?
I had it up just a second ago and was reading about it because I thought it was cool that they were still like up and going.
Yeah, because the name of it when we get to it. I know for
Yeah, it
sure
was
that
Camp No Be Bosco in
Nobi Bosco.
Blair's, yeah, in Blairstown, New Jersey, and it's still an active camp. And they still got an active website and everything. So like, if you want to go, you can.
Yeah, and I do know that if you go there, they actually have like a memorabilia, like whole section of the camp dedicated to the film, for people who want to come and see it as well, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, we got to try and book a trip and go and stay there.
That would be really cool. We'll do like a little commentary, maybe release a video. It's not too far away from us, so I love this too. And this is how we're introduced to how this movie sets. It does the hand cam footage, which I very much like. So that you're seeing the killer's perspective from first person. And I
OG point of view.
truly love it. It's really unique. And like, I know it's done a little bit, but I've never seen it
nookie
done this well, especially in this scene too, because the two teens are up, obviously making love, and they're peeking through the stairs. And they have like a full-on conversation with the person. So they're not that terrifying at first, right? Like this is someone they know.
Oh, they do full out tours at this campsite.
Boom.
Dun, 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 dun,
and then I like how we get offbeat to when you see the people suffering, it goes from the first person because you're supposed to be visualizing their pain and not visualizing it from the killer, right? I like how it's a nice switch of feel when you're feeling for the characters that are being
I like that
with.
we're like 5 minutes in and we're already getting deaths.
Yeah. And here's where we get the classic slow motion scream effect that's been used a million times after this now. The pause zoom in. A little cheese, but just as good. I mean, it's the 80s. The 80s, barely. It's just came out in 1980. So it was filmed in the late 70s.
Dun, 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 dun.
Love it.
So what Godzilla came out in 1958?
What Godzilla came out in 1958?
Yep.
Good question. Why do you ask 1958?
Because the camp opened up and it was 1958.
Oh,
so okay. I was wondering what was happening at the same time in the Zilla world.
It's a good question. 54. I think it would have been just after King Kong versus. So it might have been Mothra versus Godzilla. Let me check just to be sure quickly. See if I got that right off the bat. So during that time, actually, that was a dead time for Godzilla. Godzilla did 1954 and 55, and then Toho did other films during that time until King Kong versus Godzilla came out in 62. So let me see what Toho was up to and what movies came out during that period. 1958, we got nothing notable. The Mysterians, which is a really good one, came out the year prior in 57. We'll get to that eventually. And then there was a couple like the H-Man, the Hidden Fortress, the Snowy Heron.
Still looks the same.
Oh, I'd hope so. When a place is filmed for a movie iconic as this, they generally try and keep it same, and just restore the original work because it brings in tourists, it brings in money. It'd be silly for them not to.
Well, most of this still looks the same because I've watched tour videos and whatnot. Like the National Bank sign's still there, but it's not a bank. The convenience store that or diner or whatever that she goes into isn't there anymore.
A dog.
The gas station isn't there anymore.
How you get to boost your audience level in a movie? Add a dog.
Yeah. Always had a dog.
Yeah, we love dogs. Everyone loves dogs. Most people love dogs. Dogs or cats. Anytime you include fluffy animals. I like that he walks up, hi, girl, and then she looks down at his crotch and says, oh, boy, I mean. It's nice. Cute little comedic
Of course
touch.
You'd like that.
Well, yeah, my dog, for a pug, my dog's got the biggest schlong.
Okay, we're not totally talking about your dog's dick. 7:01 on Friday, 13th of June. We're talking about
Bruce's dick. Little pug penis. Little being an understatement. It's massive. Anyway, going off topic of that, when was the first? Was this the first film that you were introduced for Friday the 13th? Was this the first one you actually watched?
No, I believe the first one I seen was part 6, part 5 or part 6.
Which is Jason Lives or New Blood, right?
Yes, I think it was Jason Lives. And then I found a box full of them that someone recorded off of TV, and I took it home and I ended up binge watching all of them.
How old do you think you were roughly when you first started watching these?
Maybe 10. The first like horror movie that I can actually like remember watching was I went over to my uncle's house and he showed me Child's Play 2.
Oh, you poor soul.
And then there was a whole adventure of him trying to find Child's Play 1 because that was harder to find for some weird reason. Yeah. But then basically from there, blast off into horror world.
Yeah, by the way, the poor soul was because Child's Play is a scary movie to watch when you're a kid.
Oh,
not
100%.
Because it's bad.
I remember I had nightmares and my grandma called him and yelled at him. Also, okay, so fun fact, Ralph actually only acted in 1 or 2 movies, and he was mostly only known for being on stage like musicals and whatnot.
I could see that.
Yeah.
He seems very theatrical in that sense.
Very Prophet of Doomy.
Yeah. I liked Ralph. It's a nice cut, nice little touch, and I think it's in the second one that he's dispatched.
Yes, I believe so.
I don't think it's this one. He lives in the second one. I think it's the second or the third one where he's polished off. But I like how he's the only like real, besides their survivor. I mean, even she's just referenced. She's not even a reoccurring character. I'm pretty sure that besides Jason, Ralph is the only reoccurring character, right? Well, besides later on as you get in the series, because you obviously get Tommy and in future films, the other character,
the mom, I'm not going to ruin it, but something happens to the mom. Jason kind of comes through. I guess you could say that he would be a reoccurring character because he watched it, but I wouldn't, put him out there.
Oh yeah, I would say Jason's a reoccurring. Jason and Ralph are probably the reoccurring characters.
Because the one girl only lasts until the next movie and then basically gets canned like within 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. She's like because it opens up in the house scene. That's right. Yep. I remember now. Okay. It's okay. We can talk spoilers. We've given the warning. You shouldn't be listening to this podcast if you hadn't seen this movie.
Well, it's kind of hard not to with them having like 7-8 movies and then all the storylines reaching throughout them, because now you're just like, I can't, you got to bring up one part to talk about the other.
Yeah. Just a segue too. For me, I know watching Godzilla, that was like my first movie obsession was definitely Godzilla films. My second is the Friday the 13th series. I think it was 2002. So I'm dating myself here. I was born in 95. So I was probably 7 or 8 years old when I saw this movie for the first time. And I watched this one. This one was the one I watched because I was talking to my parents and I said, I love movies. I love special effects and practical effects. That's why I loved the Godzilla films as a kid. I was really into this. I take my camcorder and make little movies and stuff with my camera. And watching this film was the first one because my parents were like, it's not as gory as some of them. Like it's enough to watch it. You understand the factuality of it. And my parents knew I was a pretty straightforward kid and like we were pretty open about everything. So they didn't mind me watching art that necessarily was a little bit, older than what I should have been watching. And watching this movie, especially we're talking about the hand cam footage, that was a huge inspiration to me as a kid to make little home movies where I would hold the camera and do first person stories because I'd film them by myself. So I couldn't, have someone else filming for me.
Yeah. And it works out well, especially how they're doing it in the car, because with all the bumps and whatnot, it doesn't matter if the camera shakes. It can literally be like one homie holding it, then switch and then back and forth.
Yeah, exactly. Like, like the guy who was filming that shot was literally sitting in the middle there, in the middle of the van, so they could get different shots. And they probably just drove around the circle of the cemetery. And then
so if you take a second,
his stuff.
Right there, Morven Cemetery, Hope, New Jersey. So that is actually still in Hope, New Jersey, and you can go and visit it. Other than the gates are now closed. Ha!
The gates are kind of closed. I would hope you could visit. If you tore down a cemetery, like what kind of human are you?
I don't know, a fun human. But
Jesus. But yeah, like I said, so I was probably about that age. And when I started watching them, I became instantly obsessed, had to have all of them. And especially because Godzilla was my first experience. And those movies were impossible to have and to get. I remember watching the first movie. My parents bought me the DVD, and we went the next day to our local video store. That's Entertainment, which is just
I
your
love
equivalent
That's
to
Entertainment.
Blockbuster, but it's family owned and they have a lot more
Better.
selection. Yeah. And they had the whole series. And I remember they had a limit on how much you could rent. And I wanted to rent all of them all at once. The whatever they had up to, I think they had up to Jason Goes to Hell at the time because Jason X
That one's
wasn't out
poo.
yet. Yeah. And I wanted to rent all of them at once, but we couldn't. So I had to rent them in sections. So I rented the first half. And then I went back the next week. I watched them all in 1 week and then rented the other two and just went through all of them and absolutely loved them. And they were truly my next big obsession. And this was definitely the birthplace to bring me into horror, which is why, like I was saying earlier, it's such a fitting film to watch in this series because just like Godzilla turned me on to practical effects and movies, Friday the 13th opened the doors to more North American films because I mean, come on, I was getting ripped on all the time for like in Japanese movies and kaiju films as a kid. And this is something that I could be like, oh, well, have you seen this? And they're like, oh, yeah, blah, 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 blah. So
look at us go. Now we're getting more short shorts.
Oh, yeah, it's the 80s.
What a time to be alive.
Crop tops, half open shirts, high waisted pants, and short legs.
I would have done well in this time period.
Yeah.
I'd be a camp counselor. They'll
Respect to this guy. They just take out that stump of that tree. Do you know how long it takes to take out a stump that big? He must have been out that all morning.
They probably left him stumped.
Jesus Christ. Now, unlike Godzilla films, but no offense to them, this movie was built on a very small budget, like Godzilla. However, this movie has made so much money. Like, just to really put it into perspective, people, at the time, this film, the budget was $550,000 total spent. I mean, there's probably a few extra charges that weren't included. And it grossed over $39 million, almost $40 million, if you're rounding. That's impressive as hell. Can we just talk about that? That's ridiculous. That's like a huge profit turn. Even like big budget movies these days, the amount you spend, you still wouldn't make more money than this movie has with the amount they spend on it compared to how much they made.
This guy's just thinking, paint me like one of your French women.
Yeah, this is the one thing I found really creepy about this movie. This is the one scene I always felt was a little uncomfortable, is the awkward relationship between these two. And I know at the time people looked older than they were, but like this guy definitely looks way older than she is. And the fact that they're kind of having a thing.
He's supposed to have bought in the camp and trying to reopen it, right? And she's just kind of a helper.
Yeah, and he wants to give a helping hand on something else.
You always need a helping hand.
Yeah.
No, yeah, he definitely wants
he's buttering her up, yeah.
Trying to butter that biscuit.
I found it too interesting too when they were filming, obviously to save money. Some of them stayed in hotels and whatnot, but a lot of them, I know for sure the guy who did the filming with the knife, who was the killer, but obviously not, it wasn't him. I think his name was Tom Savini, if I'm pronouncing that right.
No, Tom Savini is is the special effects guy. Or did he play the guy with the knife?
No, he played the guy with the knife. He was the guy on the camera. He was holding the camera.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, and he actually stayed on the campsite. and stayed in the camp while they were filming, because you might as well, right? He just wakes up, gets to work. He doesn't have to travel. You save money. You've already rented out the campsite because it was closed down for filming this.
Yeah, Tom Savini's worked on so many movies that you have watched. I guarantee it.
Oh yeah, easily.
Like there's too many to even list at this point. If you look up that man's like list of movies, it's like never ending.
Oh yeah. I mean, he worked on I just saw Aqua Teen Hunger Force. He was a police officer in Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Yeah,
he was in Zack and Miri Make a Porno.
Works with WWE for mask design and other costume.
Land of the Dead, Grindhouse. Wow.
I told you.
Played himself in The Simpsons.
Dude's iconic.
That's actually wild. He's been in a lot. Dawn of the Dead.
Do you know the band Kissing Candace?
Friday the 13th, Man the Knife Killer, uncredited. So that's why it was hard to know. He was uncredited for it.
Fair enough. Wait, what did I just say? Oh yeah, do you know the band Kissing Candace?
Yes.
Okay, actually. So Tom Savini did the mask. He designed them.
Really?
Yep.
That's super
They're
interesting.
the singer and Tom Savini are friends, and he was like, "Can you make my mask?" And then now they got some sweet mask.
I also like to all the sets and all the stuff they're working on too in this film. I think they built a few things. Like there was a few outside sets that they adjusted, and they built a bathroom set. But the rest of the film is all filmed on site. Like they were all just cabins that were already there.
That cabin that was behind them right there with the red door, I have a piece of that.
Really?
Yes.
That's really cool. That's wild, actually. I like this.
Some collectibles.
The ominous like setup of the archery. It's like this is a little foreshadowing.
Oh, this is how I'm gonna teach my girlfriend how to archer or shoot crossbow. This is romance at its finest. Ta-da!
That was a pretty scary shot because they actually did that. I'd be a little scared if I was her.
He's just making fun of my peoples.
Yeah, so for those who aren't watching along with us and seen the film, it's the scene when she's bringing the archery pad out for the kids to start archery. And one of the other guys, while he's setting it up, shoots the arrow right at the pad as she's holding it. And like for the arrow to penetrate, they must have actually shot it. And I'm like, they probably were closer by, so they didn't have to worry about missing, but still a little sketch. I don't know how I'd feel about that. The classic, no one picks up the hitchhiker.
Yeah, I wouldn't pick her up either. Drive her over.
But
run her over.
They stop.
Do you know who that is in the car?
The person driving?
Yes.
Let me take a look.
They don't show you. Do you know who it's supposed to be? Yeah, because you don't see it.
Yes, it's supposed to be Mom. Pamela. Yeah, Pamela. Yeah.
For like the longest time, I was always like, who picked her up? And then I finally clued in the one time being like, this is Pam. Like, this is the mom. Because when she shows up in the Jeep, I'm like, oh, 1 and 1.
Yep. Well, this is the first kill we get in the movie, I believe, right?
Well, no, because I guess technically the first kill would be
the 2 in the attic.
Yes,
that's right.
But technically, for camp counselors of the reopened camp, yes.
Yeah, this would be the first, because I'm pretty sure it just kind of happens. She pulls off into the woods where the camp isn't, and then she chases her through the woods. That's how this.
Yeah, she jumps out of the car or the Jeep, whatever.
That's right. Yep. So that way we don't think the killer is the person in the car because the car doesn't pull over. We just see her abandon the vehicle. And this is a good way to show you that you shouldn't hitchhike, people. This is the kind of shit that goes down.
Oh, I can show you a bunch of real history that you shouldn't hitchhike.
Yeah, exactly. For this one too, I do love the director and writer of this, obviously famous for this film, especially Sean S. Cunningham being the director and Victor Miller doing the writing. After this, they did a few things here and there, but for the Friday films, they did this one, and then I'm pretty sure they both didn't do another Jason movie or Friday movie until at least the ending ones, like Jason X, I think. And then they did more producing, not writing. I do know that Victor Miller did a lot of things in between, like a lot of the shorts. He did character designs, and he had to be credited because he created the character technically, right? Because he's the writer of the film. So he's credited on a lot, but when it comes down to it, he didn't do any work on those films until I think later on he helped do like the remakes and stuff like that. They had a say on it, but
I love this movie so much.
Yeah, I do like too the score for this movie because it's just like the Halloween films. It's used sparingly. The music is it's a very quiet film. When it's just the people interacting and hanging out, the music is either coming from them playing instruments and singing like the Hallelujah song, or it's the horror music when the killer is chasing them. But even now, when the chase ends, you just get nature sounds. And I feel like that absence of a score really adds the extra suspense.
Well, did you notice as well that we saw a man's leg instead of a woman's leg?
Yes.
So my theory is that because Pam is going crazy and she's hearing the other voice, is that she started to dress like a man at the same time, like, wearing the Jason costume.
Kind of like a Psycho-esque.
Exactly. Like kind of, dressing like the mom, because like it wouldn't make sense that you're seeing, like flannel and then like the man's pants and the boots where it's Pam though.
Exactly.
And she's also talking to herself later on in the movie, being like, "Mommy, kill them." So like
I like
that
that
makes
angle.
me think that that's like how I like to solve that one, because then you just sit there and be like, well, who's this guy?
Yeah.
So
So
clearly
yeah,
there's someone else in there.
we just saw our first kill, and that was how we knew why they were wearing them. He dispatches the hitchhiker there, the one girl who's arriving to the camp late. Really cool effect when they kind of do the slit throat and then they just walk away and exit, and you just see the girl gasping for air and the blood coming out of her throat. It's a really nice shot because it shows that the killer's on a mission. It's not there for the sadistic. They're not there for the kill and to be in the moment. That's not why they're there. They're there for revenge. And I like the fact that it's just a kill and leave, because they don't care about the after effect. They're there to prove a point, and that's where you really start to see the understand the psyche of the killer and why they're doing what they're doing. Because most people, who are killing for the the sick tendencies would stay around and watch the death or have the body afterwards. But that's not in this case. They kill and leave. So it doesn't show that they're not killing for fun or for sport, but they're killing for purpose.
And Jason's just creeping. Well, Pam.
Yeah, at this point. Or it could be Jason. We really don't know, right?
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, he's out there
Jason is
somewhere.
living.
It doesn't exactly pinpoint who's who when they're in the forest. They just say he's out there. He
Exactly.
watched.
Ugh, I hate water. I would have just let him drown. I know he's joking, but I just would have let him drown.
Do you know that Kevin Bacon got into this movie just because he was sexy looking?
Absolutely. That's how Kevin Bacon got in every movie.
Could you imagine? That's me now, JK. I'm like Kevin Vegan Bacon.
And like honestly, like before this, was this Kevin Bacon's one of his first films, right?
I think this is his first film.
That would make sense, because I mean, why everyone else is a lower named actor at the time. It'd be weird if they spent all the money on him and then have him dispatched halfway through the film.
His legs are so white.
Yeah, you got white legs, bro.
Got white legs. Yeah, definitely give him mouth to mouth.
And obviously, and then he's joking and he kisses her. We all saw that coming.
Yeah, no shit. I would have made the dude do it just to throw him off.
That's funny. I would have too.
Especially if it was your homie. It would have been more funny.
So Kevin Bacon was in a couple things before this, but it was TV series mostly. In 51, so he must have been young. 1978, National Lampoon's Animal House. So he was in Animal House before this. That makes sense. He was Chip in Animal House. So I say Animal House because the rest of them are like Starting Over, The Gift, Hero at Large. He played Second Teenager, and then he played Jack in Friday the 13th. So I think that National Lampoon's Animal House was his first big hit, and then Friday the 13th was his first step into like horror and suspense.
And I think I own that on VHS.
Isn't it crazy to think that Kevin Bacon 4 years later after this was doing Footloose?
Footloose. Yo, that thing's got a banger of a soundtrack. And I never.
So really
never,
cool
never,
about
never
really cool thing about this scene here. They see a snake in the cabin, and basically the cool thing about this scene I learned is this is actually a scene added after they were done filming, because one of the actors who was staying in the cabin had an experience where there was a snake in their cabin and it was terrifying and they hated it. So they're like, we should have a scene like this in the movie. So they actually filmed this afterwards. And the snake that's in here, obviously this whole scene is fake, but the scene when they kill the snake
is real.
Is a real snake. And they really killed it.
I was going to say that. I was like, oh, it's a real snake. They murked that thing.
Yeah. Like that's a real snake. You can tell by the way it's moving. But obviously it's not in the room when they're doing this right now.
Could you imagine being like the cameraman just standing there watching everyone freak out and be like, all right, freak out, do more, throw some feathers around.
I do like how the pillows from the feathers and the matches are flying everywhere. Just adds a nice little cinematography touch. I like it.
Well, old pillows would have been like the feather down pillows, right? Now we got like cotton and all these other materials.
That's why a pillow fight was such a big deal in the day, because it would make a fucking mess. Unlike back and like now when it's just blunt force, you don't really break those. It's hard to break unless you got a wicked pillow hand. Oh, I love how the cop shows up at the worst time. Guys
Now you got to use
dancing
that memory
around,
foam pillow.
the feathered hat on. Oh, geez.
This is like me every day.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are observing a Josh in its natural habitat.
Yeah, basically. Hey, nice bye.
Kevin Bacon's definitely been smoking.
Yeah, I dig it, Papa.
I dig it. Hey, he knows all those. He knows all those terms for it. You know, he's taking the product and
Ass,
smoking it
cash, or
afterwards.
grass.
Yo, Kevin Bacon's got balls though. He's like checking out the cop's motorcycle. He's like touching it. It could be a federal.
We got to be
offense at this point.
nonchalant. Don't be a dick about it.
Yeah. This guy's not helping the cause.
Yeah, that is me.
Oh yeah, he's after Ralph, of course, right? For sure, of course. So I know this one's kind of known for being the lesser liked by critics and some fans just because of how it's shot, but it's obviously iconic because it's the starting one and stuff, right? But what do you think the tomato meter is for this on Rotten Tomatoes?
I hope at least like an 80 or 90 because like you can't I don't know, man. This is one of those movies. Like the reason why I am not the biggest fan is because I've literally watched this one the most.
But look at
when
Halloween.
You start the franchise. Well, that's what it's like when you start the franchise. You clearly watch the first one 1,000 times. You watch a few of them, then you kind of take a break or something.
Because we're gonna be honest here, like this
but
is
it's
a classic
really good.
movie, but there's a lot of issues with this movie, like
issues, but it's really good for
the
its
special
time
effects
period.
are great, but the acting, they're low budget actors, so the acting was not good. Like we can say that the acting is pretty stale in this film. It's got character in the fact that it's really different and it's got like a realistic approach, but when you boil it down, the acting is pretty dry in this film, and there's a couple scenes where you can tell the person is kind of unsure with where their character's going. And but when it boils down to it, it's an iconic film and it is a good time, but from a perspective of judging a film, there is some issues with it, especially compared to future films. Like I would say the acting in the third one is way more on par. I find the first two, the acting's still a little cheap.
I find it's more, or at least I think it's, I can't find it, but I think it's more because it's the first one, they're trying to figure out where they're going with the story. They're trying to plan it out and they're, yeah, exactly. Right. Like they're trying to figure out the characters, figuring out what Jason's going to be doing, what the mom's going to be doing.
Yeah.
Everyone's just kind of playing it out by ear at this point.
And we were talking about, recently we were talking about movies and how they plan sequels. And I'm not a big fan of how films these days, when they write a film, they're writing an intention of always making another one and be like, oh, well, if it does good, here's this like, you know, cliffhanger at the end to announce there might be a movie. I'm always more of a fan of them giving subtle hints throughout the film of what could happen in the future. But this is one of the films where I think the ending, as though it seems like they're setting up for another film, they weren't. I really think it was just a surprise ending, because when he comes back in the second one, he's not like he's a kid. You know what I mean? I really don't think they were planning on making another one. I think they just wanted to have a dramatic turn at the end just to keep people on their toes. And then they ended up making enough money to be like, okay, well, what could we do next?
Well,
but then
worked,
definitely after that, they planned at the end and did
it worked. And you can change like this story so much by just having different camps. You know what I mean? Over the years. Yeah. If you compare it to Halloween, where you're trying to continue one story over the years, you know what I mean? Like you got Laurie and you got like the nieces and all that, but in the end it's like you can literally keep going with this. Technically Jason could still haunt every year.
Absolutely.
You know, like that's where this one's very universal, where it's like they could have done the one movie. If it does well, we could do 2, we could do 3. Fuck, we'll send him to space.
Yeah. And I think too, that's why it's good. I feel like it's totally appropriate to watch this, because we were just talking about with like the Godzilla films, how they kind of keep it same every time, but they try new things and get really different, but they keep the core mechanics the same because that's their art, that's their style. And I feel like these films are another perfect example of this in the horror genre, that yes, they kind of follow a similar plot and similar idea, but every movie is dramatically changed with a cool twist. And like, it's kind of every movie stands out on its own for being different and having unique things to it. So I really do appreciate that for these films. And I love it in movies when they do that. But that being said, obviously, when I first watched this film, I did know who Jason was because obviously, you went out for Halloween, you saw people in hockey masks, and they're like, "Oh, that's the killer Jason," and he's from the Friday the 13th movies. So going in and watching this film for the first time, I was expecting to see Jason, and I think as a kid, the fact that I didn't, I wasn't upset. I was thrilled, and I thought it was so cool because then at the end, he's revealed, and then after watching the other ones, I was like, "Wow, that's what made me want to go out and get the rest of the movies." Because I'm like, okay, well, where does he come into play? And then even watching the second one, spoiler alert if you haven't seen that one, just a heads up, he isn't wearing a hockey mask. And like I was still like, well, is that him? And like the movie kept reeling me in. And I love that. And I think that's why it's such an effective movie later in these years because of that fact, because they dramatically have such this long stretched out history.
Like even with like posters or something for it, right? It still has the Jason mask on it, even though he's not in it, because we're supposed to be led to believe that he's the one doing the killing, right? Like,
yeah,
we're still supposed to think that he's alive and about, but it isn't really filling us in on any story up until like the end couple 20 minutes or so.
Because we're not ever told about Jason at all. Like we don't know Jason even exists until the ending scene.
When the movie opens, right? Like it just opens on the camp in 1958 and some shit's going down. So like we don't see much. They do not fill you in. And that's kind of the more joyous part of the movie. Like you can make it work by not filling it in. You don't have to tell anyone who's the real killer.
Yeah.
And clearly we don't see that until, well, kind of, we see that at the end of this one, but in the end, Jason becomes it in the, actually the actual masked Jason in the third one.
Yeah. Which we all agree. Thanks to Shelley.
Yes, exactly. So like there's few different versions, like the mom, the baghead Jason, then we get a Jason. So like,
which arguably, I think the second, watching all of them, part 2 has always been the scariest. I think that part 2 is my favorite because I think it has the best cinematography with how it's shot. I think that the burlap sack bag is menacing because it shows the stature of a person, but without the face. And I know even the hockey mask, you just see the eyes and barely that. They black out the eyes most of the time later in the movies. But I found that the bag was more mysterious because even with the mask, you can see the head shape, but you have no idea what's under the bag. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Until it gets pulled off, but you get
with that's a great scene too,
especially with like just the one eye hole too. So he's just basically got the one eye or doesn't need both of them. So you're just like, what's under there? It makes you curious to what's
because we saw at the end of this one how he looked. So we're like, okay, well, if this is him and he's older, like what would he look like now? I think they did a really good job with how he looked in the second one. I enjoyed it a lot. I'll look at Kevin Bacon pretending like he cares what she's saying. He's like, yeah, I just want that. He's like, I just want to fuck you. That's it.
Yeah, I would have been like, yo, that's badass. We should write a song about this. Girl should write some death metal lyrics.
There you go. In the shower dream. I like that lightning shot. That's something that didn't age well. They're supposed to be lightning, and it's very obviously just an orange flashlight they flashed on their face because it's not white light like lightning. It's like an orange. It's a little cheesy, but we got the point. To save
some money. We knew what was up.
We get the point, and then we get these stormy shots here. They probably had to wait for the perfect day to get these shots so they could film the storm coming in without wrecking the cameras.
Man, I want to go to that camp so bad. I want to see it in person. Josh wants to go to New Jersey.
So it starts in this movie, obviously, with that first opening scene. And I love this. It's an ongoing joke, especially I always say this every time we watch it. Anytime you see someone smoking, fucking, or stealing.
Basically anything bad.
Death. Death is upon us. And I love too they get a nice little booty shot there. That these movies are very much just like the bad of the bad. Like they exploit, sexual intention and all these bad things. And that's kind of why they're great. They did a lot of things that movies wouldn't do. And like, but you also get the aspect of like, they're going to pay for it. So, right?
Oh, they're 1,000%.
Yeah. So I love it when people are watching for the first time. They're like, oh yeah, okay. And then something bad happens and it instantly triggers them. It's going to give them a complex now. It's almost like that scene in Transformers, the one Transformers movie when the girl goes in and she's hitting on Shia LaBeouf's character, and then they start making love, and that robot tentacle thing comes out from behind her, like coming from her crotch, and like goes to impale him. It's like forever terrified, like teeth terrified. It gives you a mental complex.
Never again, PTSD.
Sexual intercourse.
Fair enough.
It's a nice touch. I like this guy's always rocking the guitar.
Playing some Slayer.
They're gonna get drenched in a different way, I think.
He's playing Raining Blood.
I wish. He's not actually playing the guitar there. Just so we're all aware. He might be playing something there, but that is not a live track they recorded afterwards. You can tell his hand's not moving with the notation.
Of course you'd notice that, guitar nerd. I would have never guessed that.
Anytime I see a guitar, I'm always like, are they actually playing? Are they actually playing? Very few movies, because it's hard to get a natural sound right off that. Like if you had if you had like just a mic on hand for your speaking parts, they often, even in these movies, for these low budget ones, you can tell because you can hear the natural reverb when they talk. But a lot of these films are always overdubbed afterwards. Like, because look at the example of like The Dark Knight Rises with Tom Hardy when he played Bane. He did the whole film in a really good voice and had it filmed. But then when they went back to do the editing, they realized they couldn't understand him because he was wearing a mask the whole time. So they had to go and redub all of his lines, and it ended up getting a really interesting take on it, which made him really iconic for the sound.
Yeah, that's fair. Because I mean, I can think of the voice in my head right now, and plus Tom Hardy's awesome.
And if you watch, there's actual footage of Tom Hardy, and you hear his actual real lines, and you can tell he was going for much of a menacing, angry voice. But then in the afterdub, he's more of like a sophisticated dictator voice. So you always get overdubs changing that up a little bit. And it's funny too. I always think about watching these movies. Like, yeah, I watched these at a pretty young age, and I'm like, these are really like sexually charged movies.
Well, like Jason goes after Jason's mom in this one, but nonetheless goes after like the horny fuckers. So like she's waiting, and also there's a dead corpse above him.
Yeah, the dead guy above him got his throat slit there. Really cool. I'm pretty sure we don't see his death. He's an off-screen death. We just see him going into that cabin earlier.
Exactly.
And that's it. So it's a real surprise. You think it's panning up just to see him sleeping on top, being like, oh God, awkward. But then you realize he's got a slit throat. Now they're playing strip and Monopoly. I mean, that's one way to make Monopoly interesting. I feel like we've all played Monopoly enough times in our life to not want to play it ever again. Agreed. That's why they bring out all these like, Godzilla Monopoly, Star Wars Monopoly, Simpsons Monopoly, because Friday the 13th Monopoly, because people are just tired of playing the regular old Monopoly. So that's their way of just rehashing out the same game every year to make more money.
Not a fan.
No, I think there's much better classic games. Like I'd rather play like Sorry or Pictionary or Trivia Pursuit or Game of Life. I feel like Monopoly goes on too long.
And put on clothing.
Yep. So obviously they did the nasty. So they're gonna die.
Did the deed.
That's just how these movies go. I don't think. I mean, we'll definitely expand upon it and learn as we go forth. But if someone knows before we get to a movie, I'm pretty sure there's not a single moment in any of these movies where you see someone have sex or do drugs and they don't die. They are always killed off if they do any of those things. Because the only people who ever survive are like usually the person who's doing the right thing, or the like the virgin survivor-esque character, which becomes a huge trope in these movies going forward.
They're just trying to do all the bad things and see if they can get away with it, but in the end, nope.
Because that's how life goes, people. You can get away with bad things forever, but they'll come back around.
It's like karma. Tempting fate.
Yeah, you'll like it until you start losing.
I would literally be naked at this point. I suck at Monopoly. I'm so bad at it.
Same. Oh, here we go. So sex, and now he's
smoking. They're smoking.
Oh man, this is it. This is the final card. This is 2 strikes. He's rushing his death. This is a really cool scene. This is one of the scenes after watching this movie, I had to look up how it was done, especially with me being into practical effects, because I was like, how did they do it?
The
So we're gonna
Tom
watch
Savini
this.
effect.
We're gonna watch this, and then I'm gonna ask you, Josh, how you think. Do you know how this scene was done?
Yep. His head's there and it's a separate body. They created the torso and stabbed through it with the blood.
Really cool scene. And there's actually someone underneath the bed stabbing up through it.
I've seen the behind the scenes with Tom standing there trying to like check it out and figure it out, and the guy was like moving his head and
notice how they
like
use the overhead lamp, and that's why he turns on the light, because the lamp shadows the left, because they're filming from the left side. So where it's all dark on his neck is where they attach the latex to his actual head, so that way you can't see the separated body from the head. It's that kind of love and care. Like most people would be like, now these days they're like, fix it in post, put a little CGI skin on it. But back then you had to think about the shot. You had to think about it before you pulled it off, because once you filmed it, that was it. You know, you wrecked the neck, you wrecked the latex. It costs some money to repair that up. So it's like, just like bringing it back to Godzilla, you make those sets and those models, they get one-time use, and then you got to make it count.
Well, I guaranteed that wasn't a one-time kind of take thing. Like you'd have to keep going back, trying to figure it out and then see what works for you.
And I think with those, it's a little easier to do because latex was pretty easy to work with. You know, we talked about how in the kaiju films, they didn't have latex regularly available like these people had in these movies. Like latex was used all the time in North America in films. And especially in the 80s, there was latex regularly available, not in the 50s in Japan. So
no, I think they were able latex was a normal thing. Normal thing for them at this time.
So they could do multiple takes without it costing too much.
And fuck, they got Tom Savini. So
this is if this is the kill I think it is, this is a really good one. I think the practical effect on this looks so goddamn good.
I think my fear would, like, the worst way to die by getting killed by someone would be like taking a shit and then like they burst in and kill you while your pants are down.
Yeah. So this bathroom here that she's in, this was the practical set they built. This is one of the sets they actually built. It was just a cabin and they got some dirty old sinks. That's why you can tell they're pretty dated. And they just kind of quickly installed them. Because as you can tell, I'm pretty sure she turns the taps and there's no water that comes out. I don't think there's ever any water shown coming out of the tap. Like you can hear the water running, but there's no actual water. See, because then she turns it and there's like, no water. Because they never even hooked up the plumbing.
I like that.
Yeah. But not to say it's, a disadvantage, because then they make it part of the scene. Like she's like, why isn't there water?
Oh, there it is.
Well, there we get water. So maybe I'm wrong. But I do know the bathroom was built. It was a set that was built for this movie. I do know that for sure.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be too hard to hook that up to like a little pump system with a
exactly,
or some crap, right? Like if they only needed it for like that one, that was
I imagine
a minute
the
of water running
had like water wells and ways to do that. So they probably just shot it up for the one shot.
Some guy with a hose in his mouth just blowing on the other end to make sure it goes through.
Yes, this is the scene. It took me a minute to remember if this is the axe scene, right? Yeah. This is a really good scene.
So yes.
And this is the first time in this movie the old "it's not in front of you, it's behind you" trick is used in this series, because it's a good scene because you get to get the booty shot and then you get the surprise factor of the killer being behind you. Here we go.
It's just a running shower.
And they do the out of focus background with the shadow. Awesome. This shot right here. Awesome. So it's obvious it's an axe prop and they just added a clump of latex on her face and stuck it in, but it still looks great. Straight axe to the face, not like the body, the neck, right in the face. Yeah, at this point he's losing. Door opens. Get the money.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yep. So now we had another chance for someone to get dispatched. Oh, this still doesn't put your clothes on. Just puts the jacket on. It must be cold in the rain. What are you thinking? Anywho. So the one thing I will say about this movie is I do like how, unlike the other films, this one goes a lot back and forth from the camp to what's going on in town. And we kind of keep, so it makes you feel more grounded, like you're in a city and these locals know something happened, but don't say anything. And I like how that continues and brings back later. But I find in future films, especially as we get kind of stuck in that middle blend of movies, they're either focused too much on the camp or too much out of the camp. And I feel like this is a really good way to keep it even, to make it seem like the camp's the main part, but the city's involved in what's going on.
Also, you notice on the diner menus, this is Blairstown Diner.
Yes.
Blairstown, New Jersey.
Oh, good point. So I wonder if this is probably a real diner that's open there. I wonder if the diner's still open.
I wonder. That'd be a cool adventure. We need to road trip once it is
Go
safe.
to the camp and go there.
Yeah. Full trip.
So Blairstown Diner is open for business. They are still open.
The same spot that he did.
And it looks exactly the same. I'm looking at a photo of it right now. It looks updated a little bit, like they've got a tent outside with picnic tables and whatnot, but like it pretty much looks exactly the same.
That's awesome.
I'm looking at it right now from shot to shot. That is wild. The same sign on the upper half and everything. That's cool.
That would definitely be a nostalgic moment because it'd be like, wow, I've seen this.
You can tell they've added more outdoor stuff. And I wonder if this is a recent photo from May. So they probably, this is during the coronavirus outbreak and they were adding outdoor eats and stuff. And it's funny because they're advertising Uber Eats on the sign.
Oh, God.
Oh, but it's open. It's still there. And then usually before on the other side of the Uber Eats sign, it says it's actually a digital sign underneath so they can change it. So it changes from Uber Eats and it says, welcome Friday the 13th fans.
Yay.
That's cool.
That's me.
And they probably weren't thinking anything of this movie when they're like, yeah, you can use our diner. And that diner has probably kept them open. This movie's probably kept that diner open to this day.
I really don't think anyone planned for this to be as big as it did, right? Like just making like a horror movie, right? Exactly. Like how you laugh. Exactly.
No. Like they
were just like, let's have some fun with it, see how it goes. Like, honestly, I've seen movies with worse acting. So like the acting isn't terrible. Also, you notice that she went to the same sink?
Yep, because that's probably the only one that had the running water. You're probably right. Two with these movies as well. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Oh my goodness. Burping like crazy, man.
I feel you on that one.
I know, I'm just letting all the gas. It's this movie. It's just getting me all started with all the gas.
We don't shut up and we're just talking a lot.
I know. But like we were saying too, this movie was piggybacking off the success of Halloween. Like they admit in writing it, like that was the main idea, is like Halloween did well. Let's do our own film and see what we can do. But I still don't think they were expecting it to be as good. Like most times when a film piggybacks off something, it's cliche and funny, and then that's the end of it. But
even for piggybacking, they didn't even use a lot of like the filming techniques that Halloween used.
No, it was very much its own thing.
Exactly. Like they definitely had separated moments. Like if anything, I find like the point of view when the demons and Evil Dead travel through.
Yes.
Like if anything, that looks like the point of view more than Halloween would or any other scene, but that's just
where I get the first person view from. I think they got the idea is they probably watched Halloween and were really big fans of the scene when Michael was young and he's walking around the house and you see it just through the mask. I was just about to say
that. I'm like, or the scene of when he's like younger, right? And you're trying to see from that, but they were like, I wonder if
we could do a whole movie like that.
Yes, exactly. Like a whole movie.
Because they probably like that because they're like, who's this killer? Is it Michael? We don't know. And then at the end, it's revealed to be Michael, and you wouldn't have guessed it was the kid until he's shown it's him. So I think it's where they got the idea in this, because they didn't want to show you the killer until the very end. So it's almost like
it could be Hulk Hogan.
They took the first like minute of Halloween, stretched it into an hour and a half film. It works though, and it's very much its own thing. Like I don't compare Friday the 13th to Halloween at all. And in my mind, when I think of the big horror movies, in my opinion, the big three, which are Friday the 13th, the Halloween series, and the Texas Chainsaw series. There's others like Nightmare on Elm Street, you know what I mean? And you get more expanded out. It's like originals like the Dead movies, House of Wax. But I find that those three are really the iconic trendsetters in the series. Like every film either follows the Friday the 13th slasher genre, the mysterious Halloween artsy angle, then like very mysterious angle, or they take the crazy, you know, family horror aspect of like being stranded, Texas Chainsaw Massacre style. Like every horror movie carries a trope from one of those three series going forward. So in my mind, those are like the big three.
Well, with Jason and like Michael, I find it's like a battle, like enemy kind of, you know, you got the good and the bad.
Yeah.
Like it's always going to be head to head for me. Like those are my favorite too. I
And
love
they're both
that
childs misunderstood who became killers.
Exactly.
Wearing masks. Though I like that Michael wears a mask for a different reason. It's not to hide a deformity. And I feel like that's why these movies are good in that manner, because you feel for Jason. You know what I mean? Like he was a misunderstood kid who was deformed and not as smart or wealthy
and then
as the
they
other
drown
kid.
them.
Yeah.
So like,
you're like, so you're almost rooting for him sometimes. Like, yeah, but then you realize that the people he's killing aren't the ones who did that to him. So then you feel like there's almost like a wrong in what he's doing, but you almost want to cheer for him because you know it's sad what happened to him and you almost understand why he's doing what he's doing. So I think this is the first time they really almost make you feel sympathetic for the killer. Not in this one, of course, because his mom's just crazy. But going forward, I feel like you really start to feel for him, especially after the next one, spoiler alert, when he, you know, thinks that she tries to play on him that she's his mom. And you can see that he really is just trying to do the right thing for his mom because that's all he understood, because that was all he was raised to do until then. So it really makes you feel for him, like he's almost misunderstood. And I don't think any horror movie really tackles the I feel for the killer better than him.
No, because like with Halloween, he's emotionless.
Nightmare on Elm Street, he's a child rapist. Fucking
Exactly.
Chucky, Charles, he's a killer.
And then transfers his soul. Like there's
Yeah.
Candyman. Like there's not really.
Candyman's a little bit of a feel for you type of story too.
Yeah, you know what? I could say that too because
but it's not as intense for this film though.
That's a thinker. That's a thinking movie.
Yeah, exactly. Candyman's great. If you guys want to see, we'll definitely do it eventually. But if you guys want to see Candyman sooner, well, I imagine we'll probably do it when we can get our hands on the new one as well, so we can watch all the Candyman movies and then do the new one, who I think Peele did. Peele did the Candyman remake.
Completely in on that one.
Or it's a sequel, actually, I believe. It's not actually a remake. It's a continuation of the series. So she hears a kid crying out, right? Is it a kid or is it another, or does she think it's another counselor?
It's probably a counselor, but I think it's probably the mom making Jason noises to try and lure him out.
Which goes back to your previous hypothesis about her being kind of delusional.
Well, like at the end, right?
Because that is a kid yelling. Because she thinks
and I feel like she's trying to do the voice, you know, because she's got a delusional moment of herself or of Jason.
Because she hasn't lived with letting him go, so she kind of needs to pretend like he's like exactly like Psycho.
Exactly.
Which is another great film. Love the Psycho movies. Alfred Hitchcock. Great shots in that movie. But I definitely feel like out of all the Friday movies, like the earlier ones, like 2, 3, like this one still holds up the best. Especially because the fact a lot of it's shot in dark. Like I feel like they get a lot brighter and they want to show you more in the newer ones.
Oh, full circle.
Floodlights. I like how in the when they do the remake, the newer one, the Michael Bay one, that he uses the floodlights to see them and stuff. That's a nice little homage to this scene here. I really liked that. At first, I never got it, and then I went back and rewatched this one again after watching the new one when it came out, and being like, I see what they did there. For better or for worse, I like and dislike the remake they did. Like we were talking about earlier, we don't like how Jason used the underground tunnels because it takes away of like the supernatural element that he's able to appear and be places when you don't expect it. And they just tried to give you a reason for why he was able to do that, and it was kind of meh. Made him seem more
like. I don't like when they try and explain things too much. It's one thing that you like about Jason is that he's always ahead of the other people. You
like leave it up to mystery.
Exactly.
Now this is her actually playing the guitar. Because she just hits a couple strings and then puts it down. Personally, I'd go for the piano. Even being a guitar player, I'd want to sit down and play that piano. Piano by the fire. There you go. If the piano is a lot louder at night, though, but hey, so we know Bill hasn't died yet. He made it. Yeah, because it was. And there it all starts to unfold. I wonder what's carved in the stone there. It says, I think it says Mike. It's carved into the rocks there on the wall. I like Ike. Mike D. I like Mike. I like Ike is what it says.
Like Mike.
There you go. It's a basketball movie. Let's go.
Do, 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 do. I don't know why I thought of John Cena theme song, but
because you can't see it in your head. Is that why?
Do, do, do,
do. Yo, John Cena would be the best Jason Voorhees and the best serial killer. Yo, no one would ever see him coming. He'd be unstoppable. Oh no. So this is like the first time where you actually have physical evidence that something's not going right. They find the bloody axe in the bed there. So at this point, this is the first evidence where we're like, okay, even the people who are involved, they're starting to know something's up. So I feel like at this point, this is when the movie stops becoming like unknowingly dispatched and just living their lives to trying to figure out a mystery now. I do love the pacing in this movie. I will say that for a lot of it being silly and talking and set up, it has a good pacing. It has a good pace to it. Like we're over halfway through the film and it feels like it's only been on for like 15 minutes. You know what I mean?
Well, it's because we're actually getting deaths. Like within the first 5 minutes, we got that one death. You know, they separate it well where every like maybe 20 minutes we get something good happening.
So one really cool thing I want to do, I thought this would be a really cool game we could play. So this being the first Friday, we're obviously going to be doing bonus episodes throughout our Kaiju podcast, and we're going to be covering all the Friday movies now. We'll both state our favorite Friday the 13th movie now, and then by the end of watching them, we'll see if our opinion changed from rewatching them more recently now. So do you have a favorite Friday movie you can just hit off the top of your head?
Part 4 and 5 are the ones with Tommy Jarvis, correct?
Yes.
Then those two. Two.
My favorite, I think, from the thought of like which one I like personally, I think I loved the third one. I think the third one was like my favorite growing up. And I honestly think that's just because that's when he gets the mask and there's a lot of cool creative kills like the harpoon gun. And even though it's kind of gimmicky because it was meant to be in 3D, I still like the creativeness of the film and the kills. But I think if I really had to say it, I agree with you. My favorite one, thinking back on it now, is probably Jason Lives. Because that's the one where he really becomes a zombie. And like at that point, he's definitely dead.
Yeah, I was like, well, there's the 3 versions, basically, like the zombie version, the reborn version, and then like the original version where he hasn't been killed yet.
Yeah, and then New Beginnings is when it's the sheriff killing, right? Doing the killing. Yes. Yeah, because his son was murdered and he wants to take revenge on them.
Yeah, Roy.
Thank you. Yeah. Because at the beginning at the help home of like the struggled youth, the one kid eating the chocolate bar, the guy axes him to death.
Yeah,
and then he wants to get revenge on them. Yeah. So he snaps.
Yeah. Because he has to come pick up his kid where his wife left him and then he had to put his kid in the insane asylum thingy.
I like that movie I didn't like how it wasn't Jason, but I also like it because thinking back on it, it just shows that any normal person can be just as crazy as Jason when dealing with loss. And that's how this all started, was because Pamela lost Jason. So it was almost like another person losing their kid and snapping. So I liked that. And he was like pretending to be Jason. And I kind of like that angle. And it took a couple watches for me to sit down and realize that. And that's why I liked it. Because the first time I was a little turned off. I'm like, oh, that's not him. That was lame. But
I really enjoy all of them. Besides Jason Goes to Hell, Jason Takes Manhattan, and then Jason X.
Yeah,
but like X has some good parts. I didn't like the Jason Goes to Hell one because that was just not a good
No,
movie.
no, I didn't like Goes to Hell because it had that horrible angle that the Halloween film had, where he's like a spirit who like inhabits people, and they make him more of like a demon-esque thing. I didn't know. I did not like it. And like, I find in Goes to Hell when he's like totally taken out, it's in Goes to Hell when he's taken out by the SWAT team, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I didn't like that because it, like, we were all thinking that in these movies, like, why don't they just shoot him with a rocket launcher? And then they do.
And then there's Jason X too, where they attack him with military and then they like freeze him, and
Yeah. So I don't know.
ridiculous.
I don't know. This was not a fan from that point of view. I thought it humanized him and made him too vulnerable. It took away the scariness of Jason.
Well, like Freddy versus Jason gets a lot more hate, but I really enjoy that movie.
Oh yeah.
There are worse Jason movies compared to Freddy versus Jason, hands down.
Absolutely. 100%. And the fact that they got Robert Englund as Freddy, like, that instantly makes a film good.
I really enjoy that Jason. That was an issue with the newer ones. I wasn't the biggest fan with the Jason, how he moved. Like, he moves too quickly, and I don't know. It's just not the same. Each one plays a different vibe. Not
to interrupt you here. This is where we officially find out that we know the killer's involved in somehow, because he sees them. He recognizes them. Because he's like, what are you doing out in this mess? I know you.
Yeah, like works for the company or something.
And then he's dispatched. So at this point now we're like, okay, well, who could it be then? Is it one of the counselors? Like, because at this moment, we really don't know it's his mom. We know nothing. So who's the killer? Is it just some random person killing them all? So I think at this point, and especially because earlier in the first shot, it shows someone at the camp and they were recognized too, working there, that it could be one of the counselors here. So I know for a while, I thought it was, first watching this, I thought it was him. And then when I saw him killed, which is why they have that scene, now you're like, okay, well, who could it be? Because the idea is you're supposed to think it was him. That's why he's out of town and talking at the diner and all this is going down. Like, they try and make it seem like it's him. That's why because they give him that creepy vibe at the beginning. And he's like, well, why don't you stay till Friday? And all that jazz. And then this all starts happening. They were very much trying to push the killings on him. That was where they were trying to get you. And then doing that shot, you're like, okay, well, it's not him now. So is it Mike? Because he ran out and saw her scream. And like, Mike was the only one unaccounted for. So that's why now after that, we cut to Mike here. I believe his name's Mike. Sorry if I'm wrong here. And that's why we cut to this character here, because this is technically the next character we would believe to be the killer that we know of. So they're just slowly knocking off all the possible subjects to confuse us. The writing in this movie is phenomenal for what it is. Like, they put a lot of thought into this, and I might just be overthinking it and putting things that are there that weren't meant to be, but it definitely seems that way. Don't you think?
Like, when you watch it when you're younger, right? You don't appreciate that. It takes a while when you can actually talk with someone like we're doing right now. And you can pinpoint little things, though. Like, I never noticed at the diner, like the Blairstown thing, because I knew it was in Blairstown, New Jersey. I just didn't think about the diner. And I think that's a cool, small little thing.
Yeah, like, why did he go there? Why didn't he just order Uber Eats, man? They do Uber Eats. I saw.
It's like in that one, I don't remember which one it is, but they start to go party and they go to the town, and anyone that went to town to party lived. Anyone that stayed at the camp, get wrecked.
It's part 2 because that's the kid in the wheelchair stays and he gets axed.
Yes. Okay, yeah, it is part 2 then. Yeah. So go to town and party. That's what I learned.
I love how that's how I remember the people in number 2, because I'm like, wheelchair gets axed. Oh, so the blonde guy with the bowl cut. Okay, now I know what it is. And then I figure it out. And I remember 3 because of Shelley, because he's the comedic guy who gives Jason the mask. And so I remember him and him being the quirky kid who you feel for because he doesn't really know how to fit in, much like the people who watch these movies. I also feel like too, like our generation, like we were both born in the 90s, and there was a huge horror movie revolution, I would say, a movement in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like, lots of movies were getting remade, like Dawn of the Dead, and lots of movies were like becoming more in the limelight. And I feel like that drove our generation to dig up old horror classics. And now that's why you see so many people our age so into horror films, because that was the big draw then. And I feel like our generation really like booted up horror films again. And because back then horror movies weren't popular. They were like the movies you saw with your friends as a joke, and that was it. But now there's like cult followings, huge fans, dedicated people who have worked their lives for this kind of stuff. And I do think a lot of it goes to our generation. later digging up these films and showing them what they could be and what they were, because people didn't think of them that deeply back then, because cinema was fun and quirky. It wasn't serious. As for at least horror movies, it wasn't serious. They had dramas and stuff like Citizen Kane, and they did like the Godfather series and all that, like going forward, but they never really took these movies seriously. And I think once you do, you can do so much more with them, and they're still a good time, and you shouldn't take them too seriously. But I think the fact that we did really revitalize the horror industry and made it what it is today because of films like this and because of our generation.
But like, me, I'm always drawn to the weird stuff. Like Rob Zombie was a big part of my younger time. Resident Evil, like that was one of the more recent horror. I don't know if you want to say horror, but like, zombie movies that I would say the
first two are pretty horror related, especially the first Resident Evil movie.
The first one is exactly what I remember when that thing came out, my cousin rented it and I was like, wow, that was fucking crazy.
I remember too. I actually believe I saw the Resident Evil movie before I played the game. And I remember watching the movie and thinking, wow, this is cool. And then I played the game. Wow. What a difference it makes. The games were terrifying. I remember thinking, oh, it's cool. It's going to be like an action zombie thing with monsters. And then I played that game and I remember not being able to sleep that night. And
did you play like the PS1 ones?
No. So at that point I had the Resident Evil, the first one, but it was the HD remaster for GameCube. So I played them boofed up with better graphics. So it was even more scary.
It's like and that's also like the start of those kind of games too, right? Like you needed a gateway for horror games to be a thing.
And I think the horror game genre as well is another thing that really boosted the horror movie genre and kept things alive, because yes, horror movies are scary. You can put yourself in the position, but when you're playing a game, you're playing as that character. You're their vessel. As much as you can watch and pretend you're somebody, in a game, you're controlling them. So your decisions affect them. So like, I feel like that horror element really revitalized that feeling of getting scared and liking that aspect. And then we took that to movies again. So I think games being, in late 90s, video games being really huge, that being a huge contribution to the horror genre being what it is as well, especially the Resident Evil, Silent Hill, and games like that. These days, Resident Evil is all about big titty vampire ladies though. So it's great though, and just as creepy, honestly. This scene here when she's walking through the trees with the lantern, this always reminded me of the scene in Texas Chainsaw Massacre when she's pushing her brother through the forest in the wheelchair, and there's just the faintest little flashlight, and that's all you can see. I thought that scene is so effective and creepy. This one's a little different because the light's so bright. I think if they used a lack of light, it could have been a lot more creepy, but again, that's not the spectacle. See the lantern moving in the background?
Yeah.
Nice touch to give you that uneasiness that someone could be in there.
It's like windy. It's, calm after the storm.
Exactly. And notice how there was no score, and you just hear a little bit of the violin, the string section coming in. And then we get the reveal. You get the music to set the uneasiness, and then you get the reveal of Bill. So Bill's dead. So at this point, he's been dispatched. So we know it's not Bill. Bill was the last person we thought the killer could have been. So at this point, they're not going to leave us in the dark. They're going to reveal who the killer is in the next coming minutes. Because our survivor girl here, she's going to go and now find all of her dispatched friends and pretty much cross off the list. We're sitting here with a list of the people. Not them. Nope, not them. Nope, not that Mike. One. Okay, well, who's left? Well, there's the girls who were with him, so it can't be them. Not them, not them. So now we just get the gruesome reveal of, just checking in that we know it's not these people. And then we're introduced to a character we don't know. And at that moment, we all kind of knew it was her. But it's good how it's slowly revealed to us anyway. It's not just like openly put like, I'm a killer. They still kind of pulled the whole like, I could still be helping you type deal. And then you notice something's off about her. So
also, can we acknowledge how poorly this girl ties this rope to the door? Wait for it.
Yeah, she's a camp counselor.
I don't know, man.
It's all right because it's kind of like a slip knot. It's not a slip knot, but it's if you pull it, it'll get tighter. So when you open the door, it might stop you.
Maybe. I feel like if you were to pull that hard enough, it would.
But didn't the door open inwards or did it open outwards? Oh, it opened outwards. Never mind.
I was actually thinking that. I'm like, what if it opens inwards? And she's just an idiot and didn't think about it.
That's really.
I'll just put some logs here.
Yeah, not to mention putting the logs there wouldn't matter if the door opens the other way. If anything, that's helping the door stay open. But I mean, it's if they get the door open, they'll trip over the stuff, I guess. I mean, she's a camp counselor. I doubt she's that prepared for this kind of thing. So she's just being hysterical.
She's doing her best.
I do love this, though. This scene's redone in a lot of Friday the 13th movies afterwards, but this is the first time it's done where the person blocks in the door completely. And it's totally pointless. Because I believe this is where we get the first window scene, right? I could be wrong.
I believe
it's been a while
so.
since I've seen this, but I'm pretty sure we get the body through the window in this scene.
I don't know. You just have to wait and see.
Because that scene I know is done a lot. It's done in number 2. It's done in part 4 for sure. I can know it for fact in those two. Because in the one scene, it's the guy who plays the Thin Man in Charlie's Angels when he was younger. He's in it and he gets the corkscrew through the hand. And I believe it's his body that's tossed through later. We'll have to wait till we get to that point. I could be completely wrong, folks. I shouldn't lab my mouth unless I know, but I love these wide shots. These shots for me, this is like the birth of the James Wan style. When James Wan, the director of Insidious and the Conjuring stuff, when he does those really wide camera shots of the full room to give you the scape of everything. Obviously, back then they didn't have wide angle camera, but they still do the pan around the room shot just like he would. I like it. I love those shots a lot.
Close the curtain.
James Wan later did like Aquaman. He does that kind of feel, but in action movies, and it really gives you a scape and feel of the whole room. Yep, we get the body through the window right here.
I love how it's real calm. You hear the
there it is. So that's where we get the first body through the window. And I
Not
like how
her.
that's used a lot. So that's the girl who was screaming at the archery range, right? That was her other friend that they were playing Monopoly with. This is the one girl. The only people who aren't accounted for at this point were her. We know the other girl got axed, and Buddy was on top of the bunk bed with Kevin Bacon, and we're just waiting to see the one gentleman who came from the diner, who we thought was the killer originally, the owner of the camp, I guess, or the runner, the main guy. He's the only other person we haven't seen the body of yet, I think, now.
She's freaking.
Yep. And I still love at this point we don't have any idea who Jason is, and I know a lot of people argue that should have been explained at the beginning of the film. Like it should have shown his death at least in a shot of just him drowning. But and that's the Jeep. Steve, that's the guy's name. So she thinks it's Steve. It's not. You're gonna wish it was. Run. Here we go.
Yay. Hi, Pam.
Yeah. So Betsy Palmer. For better or for worse, I think regrets doing this movie.
R.I.P.
But really enjoys doing it. She's just hysterical now. And I think too, I love the clothing outfit choice for her too. It makes her feel like the grandma sweater, but ooh, that's interesting. We'll have to talk about that in a bit. They're all dead. We know this. You can even tell she's got sadistic intention the way she's talking there. Like, oh, I'm not afraid.
Exactly. Like, I would not trust this woman.
I don't know if you noticed too. If you look under her sweater, you can see the ribbing around her neck.
She's got the other
flannel
shirt.
Yep,
yeah, exactly. So that's where I was thinking that she has the split personality.
Yeah. You can see her when she walks out into the light. You can see the checker from the flannel that they were wearing in the earlier scene. And she's still wearing the same black pants. I haven't looked at the shoes yet, though, to make sure they're the boots. We'll keep an eye out for that. See if that continuity keeps up. See this manipulativeness where she's like, Steve shouldn't have opened this place. And this is where we get the explanation.
Now we get some filler.
Oh, and as she talks about it, now you can start to see her snap. Which proves to your point that she's unstable, because as soon as she talks about it, she can't control herself. Yep. She was the cook. Not a very good swimmer.
Special.
There's something very creepy about her performance here. I think Betsy Palmer did a great job in this movie.
Because he's not alive.
I love that Betsy Palmer plays along with this too, because this is the only movie she does. She tells fans apparently when they ask that she has no idea who this character in the hockey mask is since her son drowned in 1957. And she almost plays along with it.
I love it.
That's funny. Just to prove that, like, you know, she doesn't have any say after she dies. Like, she's not some spirit still telling him. That's also all in Jason's head, just like this is all in hers. I like that. Oh,
they were doing some stuff.
I do love to, and you can totally tell too when you look at the kids. Sean S. Cunningham, when he was looking for actors, he pretty much quoted that he was looking for, and I quote, "good-looking kids who you might see in a Pepsi commercial." What is this? All Monsters Attack Pepsi?
Everyone loves Pepsi.
Oh, so now we know she's.
And now she's snapping.
Yep. And now it's all her fault. Passing the blame because she can't accept his death.
Whop.
Oh. Just dispatches her just like that.
Now, I don't know if that would knock you out. You just got like hit.
I mean, she's a little older. That probably would have hurt pretty bad.
Yeah, but you wouldn't be knocked out for getting hit to the ribs.
No. Maybe winded.
Winded, yeah.
He hit her with a fire poker, so that's the first death we get. So when she was in the Jeep. So that body's been sitting in your car this whole time. And then I believe we get Steve dropping. Yeah, right there. Nice
Mr. Christie.
Done for. Nice little homage. I don't know if you look at the totem pole next to the door there. They're kind of like little masks and stuff. And the middle one kind of looks like a hockey mask. Totally not planned, obviously, but I just like that. It's a nice little touch.
Or was it?
Dun, dun, dun. Secretly, these guys plan to make like 9+ movies. Oh, yeah. She's snapped as hell. I mean, I feel like most fans at this point know this, but we got to bring it up for those who maybe don't. So the original soundtrack for this, it sounds like as it's progressed over the movies. But originally, the sound director who did the score for this movie, he just said, kill, 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 mom, 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 and added reverb to make it his own kind of thing. And it was his voice doing it, the guy who did the original score for this movie, which I thought was super interesting. And he did it himself. And it's supposed to be kill, 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 mom, 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 because it's supposed to be like her talking in Jason's tone, telling her what to do. And then in future movies, it's supposed to be the voice he hears his mom saying it, right? Nice touch. I wish I could find the person who did the music here. Working on it now so I can get an exact, because I'd like to credit him. Composer Henry Manfredini came up with the classic kick, 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 ma, 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 ma vocals attached to the score. And it's
you wouldn't think that would be iconic either, because like even in the video games.
Yep. We'd like to just take a moment to pay some respect to the Friday the 13th game, because I think as of the time of this video releasing, the servers are shutting down. For better or for worse, though, because now it's officially been released that Dead by Daylight is going to be featuring Jason as a killer.
Yeah, but I liked the Friday the 13th game. I wasn't the biggest fan of Dead by Daylight, but I am looking forward to the Evil Dead game that's coming out.
Yeah. Oh, I like Dead by Daylight because it has Evil Dead, Scream, Leatherface. It has everybody. And now the next one for June is a Resident Evil add-on, so they'll probably add one of the tyrants and maybe like Chris Redfield or Jill Valentine as a survivor, which will be cool. But I definitely know they were talking about Friday the 13th, and I think that's going to be probably, if they're smart, they'll do that in July or August in the summer, because, you know, these movies take place in the summertime. So it's like the summertime.
And that was in Dead by Daylight?
Yeah, and I think that they'll do a camp level, like Camp Crystal Lake as a level too, obviously, I'd hope. I like that fight scene too, how it transitions from the first person view when she's just slapping the shit out of her.
Exactly, just
nice
slapping
touch.
them.
I like the vulnerability of the killer in this one. You can tell this girl's fighting for her life because all of their other people were so dispatched so easily, but you can show that she's fighting back at her now. And like, I like
She's a
that.
champ.
It empowers our main character a little bit.
I also think it's because she doesn't trust anyone at this point. Like everyone else is dead, so why would
Yeah.
you want to trust the random
Everybody
person
else didn't see a dead body, so they don't know what was about to happen, right? They thought it could be some crazy person pulling a prank, like it's happened in this film multiple times. But
She's not
she
seen
knows
all of her
people are dead.
friends.
Yeah, so she's probably definitely a little more on edge. I mean, I would be. Nice shot there too. I like that one where they do the follow cam of her walking by and then she peeks out from behind all in one straight shot. No cuts. I like those shots. I have to say something here.
In one turn.
The fog going over the moon, this shot here. I want you all folks to know, if you've ever worked with cameras, it is incredibly hard to get that clear shot of the moon with something phasing over it without it focusing off of the moon. That's a very hard shot to get, and very big respect goes out to them for getting that shot at this time period in the 80s. Or like we said, late 70s at this point, because this film came out in 1980, so it would have been filmed 79 at the latest.
78, 79, probably in between there.
Yeah, maybe like a few late shoots or production tweaks in the early 80s if they had to, because a movie like this of this stature probably didn't have extensive production and post work. You know, it was what you had, and you put the film together and it was done.
Lots of planning, especially for the special effects that were added.
Said just over $500,000 budget. That's these days barely a house. So they made it for less than people pay for a house these days back then. I'm surprised she's managed to keep her jewelry on this whole time. With all the fighting, slapping, and running. Maybe that's why she's able to knock her out so easily. She's got jewels on her hand, yo.
Decked out in that drip.
I don't care what anybody says. I hate the cliche where the person runs and hides in a camp nearby, like in a room. I would have booked it and kept going. I don't care where, just keep moving.
They just want to play hide and seek.
I know, I get it. But at this point, she knows everyone's dead. So, like, who are you sticking around for?
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, bail.
I feel like that's the only time because usually they don't know everyone, so they're staying to help somebody, or they don't have a way out. But in this one, she clearly had that moment when she walked by and then she walked away. She could have just went right to town and just kept walking down the road. Like, what else are you going to do? Hide until, you know, I don't know.
You have to be a Chad.
That's the only like big plot hole, I think, in this movie, but it's totally forgivable because it's, you know, she's probably terrified and it's not going through her head. But in my experience, I would have had the flight response. I would have dipped right after that.
Got to be like a Chad, man. Just bail on everyone.
Door. Like, no way. Really good shot here. Would you not be watching the door? But they just did it for the shot. I get that. Imagine she just axes through the door. Here's Pamela. No, here's Jason. She's fucking.
Here's Pammy.
She thinks she's Jason. That would have been hilarious. That is a Shining-esque shot, though. You gotta say.
Well, it came out first.
Good question. I would think. Interesting enough, these came out in the same year, 1980. So that means they wouldn't have been able to copy it. That's interesting. I mean, I know it was in the book, but that's cool. That's almost a Shining shot, and they both came out the same year. That's interesting. I learned something new today. Never put those two parallels together. It totally makes sense, though. They're very similar scenes. So we're coming down in the last 10 minutes of this film. So this is when shit goes down. That's the only way to put it. I remember being shocked because, like most movies I've watched up until this point as a kid, the survivor or protagonist of the movie always ends up winning, but never to the fact of dispatching their enemy. Usually there's some kind of lesson to learn. Like, I thought she would have got arrested, or like, you know, she would have got away and they left it open for a sequel. I totally thought that's where this movie was going. And for what happens to our antagonist here, Pamela, I did not see that coming, not one bit, when I first watched this film. And I remember it happening and I paused and went, what? And I hit rewind and rewatched it. Also a really cool shot. I like how they shot that scene from the reflection of the water of her coming up behind. Really cool shot. I feel like this being like their earlier films they did, like Sean S. Cunningham especially, he was getting real creative with what he could do and really trying to make his status as a director. So I always feel like earlier movies are always so much hungry with such cool, innovative ideas because they're trying to make a name for themselves. Like a lot of times the early work is always the most creative and the most heart and love put into it, you know? It's a shame that Sean S. Cunningham didn't do any Future Friday movies after this. Like he was always involved in someone as like a producing angle or like he had to give permission, right? But it's a shame because I don't feel any movie captures the feeling that this one does ever again. Which is why I was disappointed in the Michael Bay remake because I thought we were going to get this.
Wait. It's about to happen.
Here it comes. We get the score we haven't heard yet. Nice reaction shot. Oh,
bye, Pam.
We see the decapitation and then we just see the hands clench as the head gushes blood and you see the bone cartilage. Amazing shot, but we can't help but be a little pissed that that's not Pamela's hands. Those were hairy hands. You can see that in the HD version, but still, it's still an awesome scene. Unbelievable. But yeah, like when I saw the Michael Bay one walking into it, like I knew Jason was in it, but I also heard before seeing it because those who have seen the Michael Bay one, it kind of has like two films in one. Like it starts off of like the early campers and you see Jason in the bag and do all that. And then they show you like, 10 years later. I thought that movie was going to be half his mom doing the killing and then it'd be a time jump but they just kind of show her getting decapitated and that's it. And then it jumps to the next one and they do like 3 time jumps. It's really confusing. I thought they just should have kept it 2, but
I think again, they were planning this was just going to be the end right here. Like they killed the mom. She was just a delusional woman. And then she's like, imagining it. So they either ended up she could have dreamed it that Kid Jason showed up or
not so much this one, but I mean like the new Michael Bay one, like the remake. It
opens
with just her mom getting decapitated. And then it does a time jump to him dispatching some cancer counselors that he kidnaps the daughter or the girl who then does a 10-year jump to her brother looking. It's too many time jumps. It should have been the mom doing the killing and then the decapitation, then the one time jump to when Jason's the killer. And that should have been it.
My bad.
They didn't attack the earlier one too much. I felt they need another remake and they need to do it proper like this movie. Now
we're going to get Ari Lehman.
Killer. Yeah.
Which I was telling Lucas earlier is that I got to meet this man.
We can talk about this movie all the time. And like people can say, like whatever this ending, not a single fucking solitary person saw this ending coming. No one can tell me that.
We get this majestic music and now they're like 5 feet from shore right here. Just have to make that known.
Yeah. Like this is our grand ending of the person surviving. Like this is supposed to be like a better ending, happy ending. This is what we're used to.
Wow, I lived. Oh no, I did all.
You can sort of already see him coming out of the water.
I lived.
If you look, you can see. I don't know if you saw
Ari Lehman.
Did you ever notice that? You can see him before he jumps out of the water.
Yeah, just a little bit.
You see the little stick and the stuff from his head, the dirt and mud. You can see it sticking above because the actor was just on standby on the side of the boat waiting to jump up. Right.
God, I love this movie.
Whether it's intentional or not, it's great. Honestly,
especially how they
I don't like this ending. I hate this.
No, but this is how they could have ended it. Well, I mean, clearly they did end it, but this is how they ended it in order to leave it open to a second one. Or if they didn't want to, this could have been just all a dream.
Yeah, I was.
She's nuts.
I didn't like this ending at all. I think this is the one thing that really made me upset when I watched this, but it also made me want to watch the second one because I knew it continued. So I'm like, how? If this was all a dream or whatever it was, right? But we know it's not a dream because all that happened and it was easily dispatched. There's no way unless she killed everyone and thought it all up,
Maybe she's the killer. Right. So that's where I'm
so they say they're dead. That's what, and they could have spun that. But that's why they're keeping her on standby because they might think it hers. She's technically a prime suspect.
No, Ari Lehman's alive and well. He's got a rock band. The water boy.
I don't know if it's just me, but I think the movie would have been cool if it just pulled her under and then
like she was dead.
And then she blacks out and then she wakes up being pulled out of the water. I would have rather just that, not this whole like in the hospital thing.
I would have rather her be pulled into the water and that's it. You know, you just don't see her again.
Considering
that was
she's
Jason's
dispatched
first
in the
kill.
second one pretty fast, it doesn't really matter.
But it also would have made it more logical if she died at that Ari Lehman spot, because that would have signify. Oh my god, I can't even remember the fucking word right now or think of it because I'm so like entertained by this movie. But nonetheless, shown that he watched his mom get slaughtered, so he needs to take
Revenge
control now. Yeah, right away.
Yeah.
So it would have been made sense to me if Jason just killed her there and just you didn't see her or anything.
Yeah.
Taken into the water, gone. End of movie.
That's why I agree. That's how it should have ended, because like she's dispatched so fast in the next one, it doesn't even matter. Like you said, it could have just had the revenge, but then it gives him a reason to come out of the water when he's older, because he's like, I didn't finish her off in the lake, so I have to come back and kill,
But why didn't he? You know what I mean? Like you had her.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's like,
did you just let her go and you go, maybe next time?
Yeah, or the fact that she struggled and got away because he is just a kid and he didn't have any weapons,
But she blacked out, so she didn't remember. So I'd like, there's little things where I'm like, nah, I just feel like she would have drowned or something.
Yeah, 100%.
And Ari Lehman.
Or there's also the fact that after Pamela told that story to her about him being drowned and everything, that scene didn't actually happen. Like Jason didn't actually pop out of the water at all. That was just in her mind because she felt the immense guilt that she killed a mother just taking revenge for her child, right?
Yeah. Theories, my friend.
Yeah, there's like many ways you could take it. And if you guys have a really cool, for those listening and watching, if you guys have a really cool theory on the ending or like how she perceived that and your own little take on it, feel free to email us, killerkaijupodcast@gmail.com, or you can add us at Twitter at killerkaijukast, message us on Instagram or Facebook, even comment below if you're watching this on YouTube and give us your opinion on it as well. And think, what do you think happened at the end? Or what do you think should have happened as well? Or do you agree with our synopsis? We definitely would love to find out and hear your opinion as well. So feel free to contact us or leave a comment below. But yeah, so I would rank this one pretty high. If I had to rank this one, I mean, we'll do a ranking at the end. Like we'll always, all of our series we'll do, like when we're done the Godzilla Showa series, we'll rank them all. When we're done the Friday the 13th ones, we'll rank them all, and from top to least, worst to best, and give us your thoughts as well. Because who doesn't love a good ranking video so we can judge other people on their opinions, right?
Plus, I love this movie, so it's definitely getting a high ranking.
I had this poster hanging on the back of my bedroom door for like my entire childhood and teenagehood. I don't know if you remember that when I lived on in North End there, Josh, when I had the upstairs green room. This was on the back of my door forever. And then one day, I think it was when I was moving, I was carrying something out and I fell and slid down the door and I ripped it in half, and I was forever sad.
Oof.
Yeah, sad. It wasn't like an original poster or anything, so.
All right, well, that's okay then.
Yeah, I do think at one point when is it the definitive point when Paramount gives out the rights and it becomes New Line? I think that's later in the series, like closer to Goes to Hell, because that's when they were able to talk about doing the Freddy crossover.
Yeah, because I mean, even the game stopped production because of the court case, because like the licensing after 30 years or something, I guess the original writer could go and take it back. There was a whole whatnot for it. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was just a cluster. Alrighty, guys. So that was our bonus episode and the first from another long journey we're going to start. Not as long as the Godzilla series, but definitely just as good quality-wise. It's all about quality, not quantity. Very different, but as we talked about through the film, very similar, like in their style of structure and like how they try to keep it same, but also like change it. Some stories are drastically different, but similar in tone. And using a lot of practical effects, using with what they got. You can draw some parallels. They're still different movies, but I like how we can draw the parallel, and especially being two films I was raised on and introduced me into the movies I love today. Both these series hold a special spot in my heart.
And plus, one thing I really like about this series is that most of them are just released like every 2 years. You know what I mean? Like new one every 2 years, 2 years, 2 years, 2 years. There isn't a long period, so at least we can kind of stay up with. Most of the effects are pretty close together.
Well, that was the beauty of these movies, is they cost so little to make, so they could keep pumping them out every year and make enough profit to keep making them, because every year they know they'd make a buck because people would line up out the door, especially on Halloween time, to see these movies. Like, oh, it was crazy.
You watching some of the good, you got something good.
Especially after this one. Like I remember exclusively, it was part 4, a new chapter, had like record-breaking lines for when it released. Because that was after Jason was given the hockey mask and then he came back with it. And Corey Feldman bringing in the cry. I believe, I could be wrong, I think it was after he did Goonies. So there was a pretty big draw to see him as well. So that one was really the most successful, I think, earlier on. That was the one that like really made the buck, and that was meant to be the final chapter. So that was like the big one, right?
Yeah.
So I think that one had the most. But this one, I think when people saw it, they had no idea what they were in for. Nobody.
We'll see what the next few hold, even though we've already seen them. But either way, still going to be rad.
But we'll talk about them. I'm sure we're watching these. Like we saw this one, we noticed so many more things before we've never noticed. We'll make our hypothesis on what we think is going on in the movies. We'll find some more fun facts for you guys. Like I said, if you guys enjoy seeing more of these movies as well, feel free to give us more ideas for future horror movies, because when we are done the 13th series, we will definitely be doing more horror movie and monster flicks. So you let us know what you want to see, guys, in the comments below, or contact us directly at our information provided. Until next time, guys, stay away from sex, drugs, and creepy campsites. Try not to die, and we will see you next time for a killer kaiju of a time. Adios, folks.